has to offer. He is Greg Cunningham. He is the head of global inclusion for U.S. Bank. It's a big job. And he's quite fit. He's not a huge guy, but he's here with us in the Cambria Gallery. His beautiful wife and daughter are too. Greg, how's that for an introduction?
That's, I don't know. I hope I live up to that.
Can you own your wow?
Let's step into it. I'm ready.
Right.
Let's do it.
All right. So this whole diversity and inclusion, it scares some people. Those words, that term.
Yeah.
How should we be thinking about that?
You know, diversity and inclusion, from my perspective, it's really about parity, right? It's never about favor. You know, it's never about
quotas.
Well, definitely not about quotas. So first of all, they're illegal. So we never want to do that.
They are illegal.
So we don't want to do
that.
The
head of inclusion for U.S. Bank reminds us.
Yeah, that's right. But it's about parity. It's about creating equal access to opportunity and allowing people to own their wow, whether it be in the workplace or in the community. And so you want to create the conditions and the environments where everybody can sort of achieve their possible and reach their full potential. That's what diversity is about. It's never about favor.
I love how you said that, Greg. So everyone can achieve their possible.
Yeah.
That does not have to be the same definition.
It's unique to everybody, and that's the work we're doing at U.S. Bank. Actually, we're actually investing in possibilities, whether it be possibilities for individuals, possibilities for communities. In fact, we have a whole campaign around that. All of our philanthropy is sort of organized around this principle called Community Possible. And there are really three distinct pillars to that. It's about work. It's helping people sort of attain jobs and having a stable job. It's about home, because we believe communities are the bedrock of a vibrant community, or where people can have a home to call their own. And the third part of it is really communities that are sort of connected through culture, recreation, and play. And so our whole mission and the DNA of our organization is all sort of organized around this principle of possibilities.
I'm talking with Greg Cunningham. He is Global Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion for U.S. Bank. And that is, it's a big title. You haven't been in this role for very long. What is your vision? What do you want this bank to do? It is a brand. It is a hometown team for us, but it is a national brand. How do you want to help lead the trailblazing?
You know, you're right, Roshini. I've been in the role just over a year, and I've been at the bank, actually celebrated my second anniversary at U.S. Bank. So
congratulations.
We have that in common and been in this role for about a year. So the work of diversity and inclusion is fairly new for me. My background was primarily in marketing. So, you know, I really see the role of banks having three very distinct things. I think banks do economic development, they do workforce development, and they do community development. Like, that should really be any bank. Like, that's essentially what banks are there to do. And so my vision in the context of that is, how do you create a culture where, again, everyone sort of understands that this notion of customer centricity and ethics lead to better business, and that is truly about bringing in the right people who understand that and adopt those principles. So that's really my goal, is to create the best team in banking, and in that, diversity is a huge part of that.
There are going to be a lot of people listening out there, as well as here in the Cambria Gallery, who don't have the deep pocket book that U.S. Bank has. How can other employers out there, first I'm going to start with the employers, how can other employers out there try to be inspired by what U.S. Bank is doing? And then what's your advice to employees?
You have to make, that's a really good question, you have to make inclusive leadership a leadership expectation. If you are a manager and a manager of people, you have to adopt this notion that leading a high-performing, diverse team is truly a leadership expectation, in the same way that producing financial results or being strategic or being innovative, diversity and inclusion can't be some other program that lives outside of the work that you do every day. And so we firmly believe that leading high-performing, diverse teams is a leadership expectation, and you don't have to have deep pockets to be able to do that, to instill that in your leadership and your leadership teams.
You know, that reminds me of a story that one of my clients said to me. So some people know my full-time gig is as a business owner, so it's important what's happening in business. I'm a professional speaker and executive coach. And one of my clients, who's a white male in Wisconsin, said to me when he was offered the opportunity to work with me, he had to do this analysis and kind of match the options for coaches and him. And he said, you and I were 25% compatible. Everybody else were other white men, but they were 60 to 80% compatible. I chose you because I wanted someone who doesn't think like me. I was just dumbfounded that he said that. And I mean, I don't think a lot of people think that way, Greg.
No, because as humans, we're hardwired to seek comfort, right? Like we're hardwired to, surround ourselves with people who see the world as we do, who validate our worldview. And I think that's exactly what the work of diversity and inclusion is about. It's about how do you expand your world, because we're all on this personal journey, right? We're all on this personal journey to sort of understand and how to push through the complexity that's thrown at us every day. And so for us, we're really encouraging our leaders as we think about where do we find diverse talent? How do you recruit diverse talent? How do you create this culture we're talking about? It really is sort of challenging our leaders to have commitment and courage, understand that we all have bias. We all bring bias to the table. Our worldview is shaped by, our own personal perspectives. And so by definition, we all have bias. And so I would just challenge us all to continue to, to think about how do we create a network of people who don't necessarily validate our worldview every day.
All right, so to wind down on a fun note, U.S. Bank is also focusing on fun and challenging communities to do fun and have fun with their families, with their communities. Give us a little headline on that and how the rest of us can take that into our world.
I'll give you a headline since we're kicking off the football season tomorrow with the Vikings. Go Vikings.
All right, and where will they be?
I didn't want it was too easy. At U.S. Bank Stadium. Tune in, tweet us, give us a shout out. But we have a program under Community Possible that we do believe that healthy play is really important to children's development and to communities. So we have a 3-year partnership called Places to Play with the Minnesota Vikings, where we've committed $1 million to help build vibrant, to restore playgrounds, to build places in communities where children can have healthy play. So go Vikings, and let's get after it tomorrow.
All right. Well, Greg Cunningham, Global Vice President of Diversity and Inclusion for U.S. Bank. Just a pleasure to have you on the anniversary show. Thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you for having me.